Hi, my name is Yuji Wendler from Team Travel International, based in Germany. Today we would like to talk about future marketing of cities and event formats. Of course, keeping in mind that this business has been affected by COVID-19 a lot. I would like to talk to York Schlueter. He's the founder of Eventives, an agency focused on organizing events, meetings, incentives on a worldwide basis. York, first of all, thank you very much for taking time. Maybe you can tell us something about the last month and some of the changes also within Eventives and what you're doing right now.
Yes, of course, Yuji. I founded Eventives, the agency Eventives, in 1996 and was the managing director of the agency until last year. So I'm in the industry for about 24 years. About 7 years ago, I also founded a second company called York Schlueter Event Consulting in order to be able to devote myself to various tasks in addition to operational event management. A few years ago, I had the idea to expand the business parts of my agency, which was always specialized in corporate events. And the aim was to make the agency more resistant to crisis. But how to do that? My first idea was maybe to hire additional employees with special skills, or alternatively, to enter into corporations. And after many discussions with colleagues in 2018, I had the chance to cooperate with two other agencies in my hometown, Braunschweig, with whom I previously worked several times in projects and strategic alliances. We took the opportunity and teamed up. And since then, we've been offering not only corporate events, but also public events and event stuff pool and some strategic communication consulting to a significantly larger customer base. And me myself, I left the management of the new agency Eventives as requested by myself, of course, but remain a co-owner and now focus on my consulting company. In the new function, I can contribute my experiences and advise companies or cities, for example, on the redesign or realignment of the MICE strategies. And of course, I continue to assist the new management of Eventives with any advice and experience. So actually, as a summary, I left the front line of operational event management after 23 to 24 years and completely turned to the strategic level. And to be honest with you, Yuji, it's an age-appropriate measure.
No, that sounds fantastic. It's really amazing. I mean, it's a very good idea. Actually, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, we were also talking about this, the problems we have in MICE business right now during this crisis, and we talked about actually the chances this crisis will bring. I mean, in general, normally in crisis, you always find chances if you're in time, if you're doing the right thing, if you have the right approach. I mean, with your new let's say focus, I mean, can you tell us something about the challenges or what you've done over the last couple of weeks, especially? I mean, as you said, you're out of Eventives right now, you're more into consulting. What have you done over the last weeks and months?
Yeah, as mentioned before, there are kind of two ways of looking at my challenges, of my personal challenges. From the perspective of the Eventives agency, there was a lot to do in connection with the industry lockdown because all events had to be postponed or cancelled. As a result, there were an enormous number of discussions with customers and service providers, including cancellation terms and payments, as you can imagine, Yuji. So after these business parts were completed, we brought our creative and organizational skills into many aid initiatives. As we all know, the lockdown had created emergency situations in many places. So we have also started some support actions for people in some relevant professions. And yeah, as you can imagine, that made us feel good despite the crisis. Yeah, and during this time, my three partners and I held many meetings and brainstorming sessions via video conferencing, and topics have always been what will the event industry look like after Corona? How can we support our customers during Corona? And a few new productions were created in this phase. For example, a streaming event we're producing in a rooftop bar high above my hometown city, Braunschweig. Till then, every weekend, we are supporting the city's club and party scene, which is particularly affected by the lockdown. And our corporate clients could position themselves perfectly as initiators or supporters of the club scene or party scene. We have also developed a social media campaign, Braunschweig, Stadt der Optimisten, Braunschweig, City of Optimists. Every day we research good news in different times, how we call it, and report on local aid initiatives or positive developments despite Corona. And in just a few days, we were able to motivate almost 4,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram to pay more attention to the positive. And yeah, and finally, as in my new role as a consultant, I currently support cities and municipalities in revising their MICE strategies for the time after Corona. We all can see the fog wall is slowly clearing a little, and so for that reason, it's time for some consulting.
It's great. That's great. Like, how about, like, because you just mentioned, how about future marketing of cities or regions or event formats, like, I mean, which are going to be attractive in the future? And, you know, what is happening lately in this field? You talked about a little bit of streaming, but like, what do you see, or what's your outlook for the future?
Just like agencies and companies, most cities have to adjust to the time after Corona with the alignment of their MICE strategies. What we all notice at the moment is that the digitalization trend is accelerating. And the question is, what effects does this have on locations such as conference centers and conference hotels in cities? So considering the lessons of the Corona pandemic and the huge challenges to solve the climate crisis, international travel might no longer be the first choice anymore to exchange information, right? So many trips will be checked for necessity and maybe, yeah, replaced through other channels of interaction. At the same time, the trend must be observed that the generation of millennials no longer goes to events just to listen to a speaker. In other words, the Generation Y and Generation Z, as we call them, Congress guests, expect events to interact and to participate in the events. They don't want to be sprinkled in the plenum, but want to meet to work together. For these guys, an event is used for networking and exchange. So on the one hand, we have the trend towards digitalization. On the other hand, meeting guests want to interact and exchange ideas in live communication, of course, and in an inspiring atmosphere. So convention bureaus of cities need to respond both to the general trends before Corona and to the effects of the pandemic in order to adapt their destination to the complex challenges facing the MICE industry. In most cases, from my point of view, you can find some ways to good solutions in functioning MICE alliances of the respective regional service providers.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, of course, you mentioned like the live communication, which we all think is super important, especially in our business. Networking right now, we had a discussion this morning in our office, is going to be difficult. It will be different for sure in the future. And we also discussed like the hybrid and virtual meetings. So what do you think if you, I mean, what's your general idea if you compare hybrid virtual on the one side in comparison to live communication?
Well, where there is a trend, there's always a counter trend as well. And like, let's take with you and me, Yuji. It's kind of convenient to discuss like this via video chat, despite of Corona restrictions. But after such a long time of daily video conferencing, we would so much prefer to communicate live and face to face, as we did so often in Vegas, in Montreal, in Barcelona, and Frankfurt, right? Mm-hmm. So that is why I believe that the current trend towards hybrid and virtual events will become a counter trend to analog live communication, always considering the Corona pandemic, of course. So from my point of view, live communication will become a renaissance experience, a kind of a comeback, of course, with some changes to previous live communication. For instance, the hygiene regulations. Anyway, the hype about hybrids and virtual events will not subside. Definitely not, because we have to see that because by reducing unnecessary travel, money is saved and the environment is protected, of course. So as a summary, I truly believe that some different formats will be increasingly implemented in the future. Firstly, I see the interactive forums, usually starting with an inspiring frontal lecture, after which individual topics are worked on in small groups, and the focus in these interactive forums is always on the interaction of the guests. Secondly, of course, the hybrid events means a real event also is moved to a virtual room. So the scenario is therefore particularly time efficient and eventful, of course. And third, total analog. So the analog event is deliberately held in a secluded location. The goal is to focus on the content, and the connection to the outside world doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I see the same. I see the point. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're all curious how this is going to be in the next months. We always discuss like business travel will start. Maybe in Germany we discuss like summer vacations right now. Some countries are opening up a bit more. I think today there's like some talks that a couple of countries will still not, or it's not possible to travel until August 31st or something. Just heard. Well, we have to see how everything develops. I mean, what's your timeline? What do you think? I mean, it's of course it's almost impossible to say anything about it. Like, when will business be back to normal? Well, it won't be for sure. For I mean, in my opinion, maybe for another 1.5 years or something. And maybe if there is a vaccine, things will change probably. But I mean, what's your? I mean, just as a last point, what is your, let's say, timeline? What do you think? How things are going to be within the next maybe weeks, months, maybe beginning of the year?
So if we see the tourism industry, regarding traveling around. I would say there is a kind of dynamical development inside of there. If we compare this with the event industry, I can imagine that there will be they will be slowly starting into the new business, of course. So I think in 2020, in this year, there won't be too much business for all of us. But I can imagine that there will be some first experiences in the maybe starting in October, November, December, something like that. And if this is working well, if this is successful, I can imagine that there will be a hype going on for next year. And that's what we always experienced in the past, that there have always been many chances after the crisis. And so I can imagine it's beginning slowly, maybe in the end of the year, but next year hopefully will be a good year for all of us. Yeah, let's hope for that. Let's hope for that.
Totally agree. Yeah, thank you very much, York, for this insights. It's been super interesting. Thank you very much for taking time. All the best to you. We definitely keep in touch, and yeah, and all the best. Take care.
Thank you very much, Yuji, and hope to see you soon live.
Absolutely, definitely live. Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.